Where you are. Blue is, dark blue is very good. White or gray is not too good. And of course, I always ask them, do you grade on a curve? But they don't. The flaw categories, they actually give you those top risks. So again, they tell you basically what's wrong, and you have an opportunity to go in and fix it. That's a pretty big help. Now, one of the things that we're doing at the FAA, that isn't on this slide, is that we also are checking after the compilation. And one of the things Colonel Brown asked me to mention is that we are actually doing that. We're using some tools right now where we go in and we're checking it with Veracode prior, and we're using other tools and technologies checking it after. So we check it before and after, then the only real problem we have is once it's deployed is making sure that we monitor, continuous monitoring. That's where my team comes in. Now, another type of thing that we're dealing with is the fact that we have IDSs, intrusion detection systems, we have IPSs, intrusion protection systems, but we also have something, this is known as network threat response. This is a tool that was built by a company called Endeavor, and the company of Endeavor, this part of this company that built it was first known as First Light IPS. First Light IPS. It was purchased by McAfee, and they renamed it Network Threat Response, NTR. NTR is a emerging technology. Thank you, ma'am. Hold my calls. Thank you. So you're just telling me to hurry it up. But basically, the improved sensor to analyst ratio. We have thousands of sensors at the Department of Transportation. Literally thousands upon thousands. You can imagine how much workload there is, even with world-class security information management tools. But NTR actually gets a metadata correlation. It brings in other kinds of areas, it captures files, it saves them. It operates in what's known as a decoy mode, ternary detection. So it actually can send a decoy. So not only can it bring, as an IDS watches it and it goes by, an IPS takes it out, quarantines it, if you will, for a euphemism, and then puts it back in if it's checked. In a decoy mode, it can actually pull it out, place a separate, in the packeted array, decoy to let it keep going so it doesn't stop mission-critical systems. This is one of the emerging technologies. Again, this is a product, but it certainly could affect the way we do business, so it could affect our process, and it crosses over into organizational ways of doing business. Now, again, we have a limited opportunity here to test them. We have 2 fielded in the FAA currently. We have 6 on the way. I know that sounds very small, but if this actually does what it's intended to do, then we'll have an opportunity to actually change the way that we're protecting our national airspace system. So, that concludes my portion of it. I'm going to turn it over to our Patriot, Bob, and he's going to give some feedback, and we'll be available for answers, and questions and answers. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
Only we're going to ask the questions, and you're going to give the answers. All right, so one of the challenges, again, as a CIO, is I've got to act as that intermediary between the business owner and all this security gobbledygook, okay? Because the only thing they want to know is green good, red bad, and all of the things that Chris talked about, they don't want to hear it. They just want to know that their business is more effective and more efficient. But without a partner like Chris and other chief information security officers, we can't get our work done and become, faster, better, cheaper. Now, as we talk about, the age-old strategy of saving money is today too many security problems are solved by getting more money by invoking FUD. Okay, the budget strategy of FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. The world is very bad. I have a lot of critical systems. Give me more money. They'll be better than they were yesterday. Okay, it goes back to risk management. What do you really, really need? And what is the risk of having that system out there and exposed to the internet, or if you only have internal connections? So it's important for the CIO, the Chief Information Security Officer, and the business owner to get together and think strategically. What is the risk, and how are we going to address it? What is the job you're trying to get done? How critical is it to your business success? Not only to operating today, but growing and transforming your business for tomorrow. You got to be agile. Solving, everyone in here can probably solve yesterday's security problem today. Okay, most of you can probably solve today's security problem today. But my challenge to my designated, approval authorities and my accreditation teams and my business analysts is help my team solve tomorrow's problem today and solve next week's problem tomorrow and next month's problem next week. Because if you're not trying to stretch out and reach out, doing things like first of a kind, being on the sometimes pretty close to the bleeding edge, but if it's important to your growth and transformation, you got to do it. Chris hit it pretty well. It's about people, processes, and technology. Not one alone will solve it, and you got to keep going. One of the things, the challenges that we endure in the Department of Energy, and you probably do as well, is when something bad happens, it's, well, make sure that never happens again. Okay? Now, it may be your website got defaced, it may be a little bit of bad publicity, but in the end, no data were exfiltrated, nothing really bad happened other than your secretary had a mustache on for 15 minutes. You know, or they change his name to Secretary Chu, C-H-E-U, or, you know, Secretary Chow, and there's a dog there. So, but you got to right-size the incident response. And, you know, not to make light of, you know, serious diseases, but if one of your facilities or one of your systems, you know, gets cancer, not, you know, the entire department doesn't need to get chemotherapy. Okay? Go find out what the problem was, go resolve it, and go move on. And it's hard. It's an everyday job, and every situation is different. But if you're not being proactive and looking out there for the future, and as you try to match up technologies to business problems, what are the security challenges that are going to come out of that? And if you start thinking about the 6 hats of thinking, and you bring in your buddies from Red Hat and Black Hat and all the others, you know, maybe not all that expertise on every item, but if you have your security officers out there going to those types of conferences and learning those types of techniques, then they can come back and help you implement a technology in a reasonably secure manner and achieve your business goals. So with that, I think we've finished up about 7 minutes before we have to. So with that, we have a list of questions. As Chris said, there is a quiz, and we'll pass that out now. All right. Questions for either one of us, preferably him. Yes, sir.
I have a question for Seema. Quick question for Chris. Actually, 2 parts. First part for Chris, second part for both of you. Chris, are you also integrating or coordinating with TSA?
Absolutely, yes. Yes. Now, let me give you a quick caveat. Don't forget your second question, sir. The Transportation Security Administration, wonderful group of people, they're responsible for the airport security. The FAA is responsible for the en route, different phases of flight in the airport environment. Yeah.
So, but if you're finding threats that may impact, you know, their security system, you're dealing with that.
Absolutely. The FAA, now, my Cybersecurity Management Center has indirect connections with TSA. However, certainly the FAA has very direct connections with TSA. They work hand in hand. As a matter of fact, unclassified, it's been in the Washington Post, so it must be true. It was an opportunity where, I get to laugh every time. One of the things that the FAA does clearly is work through what's known as the FAA's command center. And the command center, located in the Washington metro area, when there is an emergency and perhaps even a cybersecurity or virus outbreak, they do work hand in hand with all agencies, not only the TSA, but they have FBI, NSA, they've got the U.S. Secret Service. You can imagine. As a matter of fact, the FAA right now has been for, gosh, the better part of the last 2.5 months, prior to this horrific explosion down in the Gulf. The FAA was already on site to help redirect traffic, and of course there's temporary flight restrictions in the area. So thank you for the question, but yeah, TSA and FAA, as well as all the other agencies, work hand in hand almost all the time.
And the second part is a follow-on to the first question, which is called connecting the dots. How do you integrate all what you're doing with the enterprise architecture of your agencies?
Well, that can be a very daunting task, can it not? Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Next question.
I had the pleasure of meeting General Alexander. As you all know, he's now a 4-star, so I have to stand like a little bit tall. I'm the oldest living second lieutenant in the ROTC. But one of the keys that General Alexander, when I met him, and he spoke many times about it, was the fact that the key is to have the integration and correlation of not only the information sharing, but also the architecture. Wouldn't it be a wonderful thing?